Ou deixa sua bunda ardendo, ou dá tapa, 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 cara.
Welcome to Empowerment Unleashed Now, exploring your inner authority. I'm Michelle Jones.
And I'm Scott Collins.
And this is the place to connect with your highest, most essential self, your most empowered self, where you can explore your inner authority and learn from others and learn more about yourself.
We talk with fascinating people from all walks of life about transformation, healing, hypnosis, astrology, physical experience of being human, and heart-centered living.
We're so thankful that you're here with us. Let's dive right on in. Hi, and welcome to Empowerment Unleashed Now, exploring your inner authority. I'm Michelle Jones, and I'm here today with
Scott A. Collins.
woohoo, Scott A. Collins and the beautiful Bonnie Divina Ma. Thank you so much for being with us today. Bonnie is a medicine woman. She's an author. She's a singer-songwriter. And I am just really excited because those are really broad, sweeping terms about all the things that Bonnie does. But we were going to talk about today Ascension, upgrades in communication, and frequency, voice, and sovereignty is the topic. And I think that exploring how Ascension upgrades are literally transforming how we communicate. I just am shocked in the last few weeks in the collective, kind of what's been going on. Before we dive into that, Bonnie, there's a question that we always begin with our guests and for our listeners. And that question is, what are you feeling most empowered about within your life right now?
My ability to trust.
So if you don't mind kind of expanding on that a little bit, my friend, is that self-trust?
Yeah, same for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, spirit, universe out here. God, spirit, universe in here. Okay, so I had a really deep, profound, and beautiful initiation a few months ago, and that was when my house burned down. So this process of just watching everything that I built, everything from the lovingly curated hummingbird vines to all of the tools that I use in my work, to, home, this creation of home and the sense of home, went up in flames and completely, was destructed to the ground in a very short amount of time. In those moments where that is occurring, we're experiencing some sort of, we'll call it a crisis, something that's quite unexpected, something that even is potentially dangerous. There's always, I think, where the adrenaline kicks in, right? And we're just doing and going, and there can be some elements of panic, and there can be, this sense of like maybe something locking in, and what do we do? And let's task this out. And then there's this feeling of shock and disbelief as all of that is occurring. And then afterwards, it's like, well, how am I going to choose to feel about this? How am I going to choose to respond to this? And some of that choice is already in the works because of the work that we've been doing. right? So maybe we have access to a new choice that we didn't even know we had before because we've done a significant certain amount of work. So I had done a lot of work and have done a lot of work in non-attachment. And I've done a lot of work with surrender, trust, and allowing, connecting to spirit within and without that always has my back, that is always there for me. And also there's the opportunity and the choice to exercise that sovereignty, which says how I choose to write the story from here forward is going to profoundly impact what happens afterwards, right? So I had the choice to trust it, or I had the choice to fall into victimization or extreme worry. I chose trust. It was an easy choice. Just immediately connecting to the spirit of fire, and I've worked with the spirit of fire in fire ceremonies, and working with this sacred element who has so much knowledge and who is also love, but this love comes through this creative destruction that can feel so fierce. So as I experienced the power of fire, I immediately tapped into the intelligent force and the love of fire. And I said, fire wouldn't have come and brought its creative, destructive nature were it not for my greatest purpose and highest good. I trust that. I trust that I will be supported. I trust that this will all unfold with ease and grace. And some laughter, even. Not that there won't be some rocky bits along the way, not that there won't be some lessons to learn in the process, particularly around choosing your contractors. But that is and maybe we don't always trust them as much as we would like to. But trusting myself that even in the decisions that we make in this process of who we choose to be a part of this rebuild, that even if it looks like a wrong decision in the moment, ultimately trusting that too, that there's a lesson there, that there's a karmic, something karmic perhaps that's playing out. So trusting every single moment of the journey, and in doing a lot of work with medicine, and doing work with, say, the element of fire through the sun. I always say in all of my opening and closing prayers for ceremonies, the sun is the divine masculine showing us what trust feels like, because we pretty much trust and don't doubt or second guess that the sun is going to come up again. Well, it's not really anything that most of us are thinking about on the day to day. We're pretty darn sure, that the sun is going to come up. What does that feel like to feel that, to have that knowing? And then we can, and like when we're talking about frequency, we can attune now to that frequency. We can attune to that frequency of trust and what trust feels like. And then as we do that, there's a remembrance that's occurring. And so in this particular situation, it was like a choice, but it wasn't a choice. I recognize there's always a choice, but it wasn't a choice. It was what was going to happen, right? I'm trusting this. I trust this fully. There's no doubt for me that this is not for my greatest purpose and highest good, even though it looks like devastating, even though it is a massive, massive loss of material things and money and a home and our place to work and all of these things. Like it is all going to be fine. And residing in that feeling. And then anytime like a little bit of something, there's still these takes so long for us to unravel these programs, right? So I recognize that yes, there's still a little remnant of a worry program in me, and every time I would recognize, oh, here it comes, and I know that feeling. I know the vibration of worry. Worry, there you are. I see you. Okay, I see you there. I love you. You can't come in. There's the sovereignty, right? You can't come in to this field. You got to stay out here. You got to stay at arm's length. You're not allowed in here in this sovereign bubble where I'm attuning to this frequency of complete and utter trust, surrender, and allowance. I've talked a lot, so I'll leave it at that for the moment. I could go on, but I'll pause there. Yeah. Thank you for listening.
No, thank you. That was absolutely, I would say, a beautifully powerful, real time description of exactly the topic at hand, which is our frequency, our voice, how we are using our sovereignty. Is life happening for us? Is life happening to us? Recognizing that somewhere in between, there's still this real human program at times of inviting, okay, the worry as opposed to being in resistance, and creating the friction with it. I just really myself have been practicing letting it come in, and sit down, almost like having a cup of tea with an old friend that has kind of lived in the same place like their whole life, whereas you've kind of gone and seen like the world. And I know within my own ascension upgrades within communication with self predominantly, I've really had to invite this welcoming spirit in of my own duality. um I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm thinking I have a situation now where I have a very, very dear friend, a lifelong friend, who is walking through something that is just sending her into just sheer panic and terror. And the trust, is just, that is like an upgrade that, I believe she's going to be kind of receiving through the experience that she's walking through. However, I think that those of us that are in practice already, if you will, and kind of walking around with some of the thoughtware, heartware, mindware, the upgrades, if we can just with compassion recognize that we're all doing the best we can with what we've got, you just really, just so beautifully, Bonnie, it just resonates with me that even in like the shift and a lot of shift, that you can actually love the experience, you know
Love the experience and see it for what it is. It's an initiation. Got that word out finally. It's an initiation.
Absolutely.
And and referencing what you said about sitting down with these, what we might call sometimes faulty programs, something like worry, sitting down to tea. I love that. And I use that expression a lot as well. It's like, yeah, we can invite worry from that sovereign place to say, hey, come on in. What do you need? How are you feeling right now? What can I do for you? You can come and we can sit down to tea, but you can't get your hooks in me, right? You can't take over. You're no longer my default program. And so I can tend to you and I can nurture you, but you don't get to override this upgraded program that I'm operating from now.
Yes. Yes. What would you say to someone who is feeling like they are in faulty programming right now, Bonnie? Something that they can do as maybe a reattunement. What would you suggest, my friend?
Oh gosh, well, there's so many things, and this is what I do, on the day to day with people that I'm seeing, primarily through Zoom. I think a really good one, we're recognizing, all right, this is a program. This is not me. This is a program. Where do I feel it in my body? And where is it? So if we can, and sometimes we need the support of someone to guide us through that process because it can be scary or we might get a little lost in that place, right? Which is why it's wonderful that we have so many beautiful people available to us now who can help walk us through these processes sometimes, because when we're new to them, it can be even scary, right? Especially if we don't know how to feel in a safe and empowered way. But that's often where I'll go with people that I'm working with, right? Is, okay, we've recognized there's this faulty program, and it's covering up or overpowering this, what I would call the original program. That's already there, right? That's the upgrade, right? Is actually just removing the other program and allowing for it to be what's already there. So where do I feel it? Right. And then we can go to that place. So if somebody's like, okay, well, when I'm tapping in and I'm calling this program in, where do I feel it? Well, I feel it in my chest. Okay. You feel it in your chest. Well, now let's get out of the story of how this program arose, right? Of what this program has done to our lives, whatever it is. Just simply now getting out of the mind, moving into the body, and then moving into sensation. What does it feel like? What does it feel like? Right? This is where the mind finally gets to, oh, good, now the mind's happy. The mind's like, good, I get to do something. I get to analyze this. What does it feel like? All right. Well, it feels shaky. It feels tight. Feels like something is heavy in there, right? All right. Well, all of those things are safe. Every single one of those things is safe to feel, as long as we've cultivated a felt sense of safety, right? Which is why, again, it's important sometimes that we work with somebody in these ways in the beginning. And then from that place, we can just begin to breathe into the sensations, meditate on the sensations. Watch as they change. Maybe it's tight, but then maybe it starts to get looser. Or maybe it was tight, but now it's heavy. Or maybe it was in my chest, but now it feels like it's in my throat. Well, let's stay with it. Let's be present with that and simply acknowledge. And then sometimes then we open the portal for something to arise. Okay, well, maybe now, all of a sudden I'm getting a memory of my 3-year-old self. No. Or I'm hearing, a voice that's saying something. Okay, well, now that that's arisen, we can go ahead and look at that. But we don't need to go chasing that down, right? And then from there, perhaps we can do some work to now uh, acknowledge this specific aspect of ourself, right? That has now come forward, like saying, I'm ready, right? And I trust this. And then from there, we can go into, of course, other kinds of work that might be needed. But usually what I find is that just by experiencing that in the body and getting rid of all the stories, because we can put a million stories around the thing, right? Whatever it is. We can mind our way through it all day long. But until we go in and through the body with it, I don't think we get very far. We'll leave it there. Yeah. Hey, Pat.
Scott, I think you're muted there.
All right. Deep stuff. What's your next question, Michelle? You're killing it there.
Well, I just think that
Yeah.
our own voice, coming into the awareness, like Bonnie was saying, like, where is this being felt? What am I experiencing, when this kind of comes up? I just think that that awareness of frequency and feeling, but then also the voice, from the internal voice to the external voice, that faulty programming, if you will, can really be shifted. And this is kind of the hypnotherapist in me, and it's also the physicists, like Scott, like you would say, just by being the observer, and knowing this, you've already shifted like the timeline to like a different place.
Oh yeah, awareness definitely helps the time. It helps unfold the holographic amount of timelines right in front of us. Just bringing awareness to any situation, especially the big challenging ones, like Bonnie. Wow, you're demonstrating aptitudes under like what I would say 29-degree anaretic degree challenges in life, like the most extreme challenges, and that's where you are tested on where your aptitude is. I really think. And I do think also, Michelle, like you were saying, that identifying does further help us non-attach. Because when we can identify what it is, at least we know what we are detaching or unattaching from. So recognize, the old rain, recognize, accept, identify, non-attach is a great method.
Yes.
To navigate like all these things you're talking about, and like great wisdom and tools you're sharing, Bonnie.
Thank you.
And like practical experiences in which you've used in them. So like if you can use them in those types of duress, then like we can bring it in smaller ways into smaller things in our lives as they come up, abbreviated forms of those. And I guess like to like way backpedal to the beginning of it, like whenever the stress hormone or whatever does come in when you're in a state of distress, like before being able to recognize, the only thing I would add is, okay, how can I even get myself a little regulated to even recognize?
Yeah.
Bring myself to that awareness so that the holographic amount of timelines can open. That breath is a good tool for that. Like that's what I would just add to the equation, maybe of all this, because it's been beautifully laid out. It's just like to access that 0 point in astrology terms again, is like breath is a good tool to bring me there so then I can then recognize, accept, identify the whole thing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because those are things that I think are super accessible for us, you know, as opposed to feeling like, wow, what these people are talking about right now, like I do not have these tools yet in my toolbox.
Yeah.
And I think that awareness and breath, if people are listening to this, you already have those tools in the toolbox, for sure. And I just really love those little like life hacks where you can be super empowered like in an instant, you know, because I think that we're sometimes using our sovereignty and our voice in the wrong direction. It's like that manifestation, like we talk about sometimes in the opposite direction. Like, oh, it's not, perfect, or the I's aren't all dotted, the T's aren't all crossed yet. So therefore, it's not usable. No, it's like, this is like, I feel like Ascension, one of the things that I've become very aware of is that it's a come as you are. It's the light, it's the dark, it's the funny, it's the sad, it's the macabre, it's the joyful, like these dualities that I feel like somehow, even for like light workers or people that have very sunshiny personalities, that folks have made like the shadow side not our friends or nor our teacher. And I think that a communication upgrade for me has been to let that faulty program, if you will, in as my teacher because I possess the awareness to recognize it and to change how I respond to it.
That's great because I think it's a good reminder amongst all this to remind that there's not a right or wrong response actually either. And I think that was a big point of Bonnie talking about acceptance. It's really more just accepting the moment and the situation and then regaining your awareness and hopefully neutrality, which is a regulated state. And then it's just, there's no right or wrong response. You've already, by bringing the awareness and being into the moment, you've already climbed one ascension rung. And then it doesn't really matter what you do. You're just, because you're responding differently than you ever did before. And that's the point, not a right or wrong response. And that's depressurizes the situation a little bit. That liberates it a little, right? Which is what sovereignty is all about.
Yeah. I definitely think that's been a real point of initiation for us as a collective is that the way that we receive, process, transmit, information, it's been rewritten with Jupiter having just been in Gemini for the last year, right? Like this has all been rewritten and you can see it out there. And most importantly, we can also feel it in here, and I think that we're being asked to move from kind of this programmed speech to this intuitive transmission, like our higher selves are streaming through now. I mean, just, where we are in the photonic like light belts, the codes that are hitting the planet right now. For those of you out there that are familiar with it, like there's more people speaking light language than probably since Lemuria and Atlantis. Like there's just a lot of evolutionary connection that I think is being made in some very new transmissions, new ways. And intuitive transmission, I think, is a main shift. What do you think about that? Because I think of you as like a frequency leader, Bonnie. Like, like
About what do I think about the shift to the internal transmission?
yeah, that the internal intuitive like transmissions, the downloads that people are getting, um, the rejoining, the remembering, like you had said, it's not like these faulty programs, have corrupted us. It's that we just have to shed them to remember the original program, So I was just wondering in terms of frequency and like a leadership role, like what are you observing within the collective and their experience with this?
Well, I'm first of all observing a rapid shift or collective upgrade, a rapid awakening. I have so many people coming to me every day now that are having big breakthroughs, awakenings. They're opening or the veils are thinning for them, so they're now more attuned to vibration and frequency. They're recognizing the trees as having sentience. They're wondering why they keep seeing 1111 all the time. They're wondering why they're having all of these things happen inside of their body, even though there's nothing, that's showing up on a diagnostic test. So overall, we are as a collective experiencing a more rapid ascension. And of course, part of that ascension process is that we shift into our internal intuitive knowing, which is felt. And we've got to shed a lot in order to really polish that mirror, but it's happening so quickly now. Like even with all of the things that, when it's so easy. I have some people either that are around me that are just really bogged down with the news and with the politics and with all of the terrible things that are happening in the world. And like, yeah, that's there. And because we live in a world of polarities and in a school of duality, also there's this other end of the spectrum where people are residing more in their hearts. They're talking about doing their healing. They're talking about forgiveness. And these are becoming common conversations. Whereas I don't think people were talking about these things like we talk about them now. And I personally am excited for that. And I trust that too. And people will ask me sometimes, well, aren't you so upset about so-and-so and what this political leader did and all these things? No. There's no right and wrong in however we do feel, right, in response to that. But no. As a matter of fact, I see it as necessary in this particular time where if we're going to stretch more into the light, right, and into the lighter vibrations and into the higher frequencies, well, we've also got to witness and shine our light and our awareness on the lower, and they're going to become more polarized for a while, and that's okay. I completely trust that. So, and it probably like went off on a little tangent with that. But yeah, to bring it back around to your question, I personally feel that this is the prophecy time for this to happen. And that we are creating this place, we might call it, this higher frequency, because we're remembering it, because we're embodying it, because we're aware even that it exists and that it's possible. And so just by doing all of those things as a collective, we're strengthening this place, we might call it, right? This place where we can reside in our consciousness. And we can make a choice, right? We can make a choice to go there and to be there. And I think I was listening, no, maybe it wasn't on yours, but where people will ask me questions like, well, is it wrong to desire that or to want that? Say, as long as we're not attached to it,
Right.
Yeah.
you
Yeah. And I would even take a little step further to like even piggyback on what you're saying, that it's possible that the collective, and I mean, or everything we see and experience is actually just a reflection of our inner terrain anyway. So that what you're describing as the collective is actually a reflection of where you are at with what frequency you're transmitting. And
Yes.
therein lies the prophecy of the age of Aquarius with the multiple wavelengths, is that those that are on, who are transmitting at one, are actually seeing and experiencing, having reflected back to us in a collective manner what we are inside, transmitting out. And then those that are asking you those questions like, why aren't you upset about this or that? They're actually on one of those other lower holographic frequencies transmitting that. And therefore, that's what they're experiencing because of how they're framing it. I mean, it's like, it's because of how they're choosing to experience it, like you said.
based on their program.
Probably an unconscious choice. It's coming from like inhibited or a lower aptitude of awareness within the experience. But I'm with you
Yeah.
all the way around.
Yeah,
love
it's
how you
it's our
articulate it.
dream, it's our dream. And so, this is exactly what we've created. Everything that you see around you, everything that you feel, that you can look at, we're just sharing the dream right now, right? We're just sharing the hallucination together, based on our frequency. Exactly. And what we're putting out there. This has been like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. This has been just a profound like dive into like the Ascension upgrade with, I would say, everything from internal, external communication, frequency, voice, sovereignty, what we have gone through and what we've covered. There's a lot here for folks to chew on and to dissect. You don't have to eat all of the elephant at once, right? You can eat it just one piece at a time. Bonnie, we also, like towards the end of the broadcast, we ask a really just, it's a fast, like little lightning round of questions. And so it's nothing that you have to think too hard about. And I feel like you're very good at answering questions. So you'll breeze through these, my friend. So I just wanted to ask you, what is a book, Bonnie, that has changed your life?
I would say, oh gosh, there's so many. That's a really difficult question to answer because there's so many. So how do you pick one? It's not really a plug, but I would say the book that it probably has most changed my life is my book.
Yes, tell us the title of your book, please. Woo-hoo.
Because it's a synthesis of everything that I gathered from all of the other books and all of
Yes.
my own
And tell us your
experiences.
book title, Bonnie, so we have that. Your book.
It's called The Place Beyond the Story, a Spiritual Adventure.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. And if you would, my friend, a mantra that you live by.
Again, it changes all the time. And what has been coming in for me lately is a Sanskrit mantra, which is Om Namah Shivaya, which is all about the fire and impermanence, creation, destruction. And I feel it's so appropriate for these particular times where there's a lot of very fast and profound shifts that are happening. There's a lot of big transitions and scary things that we could feel really scared about. And so anchoring in the Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Every time I do that, when I experience like a speeding up, say, of something, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And that's here we can bring it back around to the voice, right? And that vibration that's there with that. It just really can very quickly shift something or maintain where we're at as well. Yeah.
And just the listeners that don't know, like Sanskrit mantras, since we're talking about tone of frequency, transmitting our intention, actually do utilize, tone and a combination of what the word means and the tone to heighten the mantra vibration in your body. So to any listener, if you find a Sanskrit mantra that resonates with you, it's better to do it in Sanskrit than in English or in any other language because of the actual tone it emits, like sound kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a vibrational language, so it's not a language we need to understand. We understand it vibrationally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Bonnie, what part of your soul's purpose are you still learning to embody?
Okay, well, this would be the full integration of my human self and my divine self. So, part of the work that we do and part of the mission of the church that we have is to learn how to be both fully human and fully divine at the same time. And part of that is to first learn to identify with ourselves as divinity itself. And so I am probably forever, well, not forever, but for some time ahead of me, going to still be learning to fully embody my divinity, to identify fully with my divinity as me. Cognitively, I know it, right? Totally makes sense. And of course, as part of the ascension process, I'm embodying a little bit more and a little bit more of that. But that is really my main purpose that I feel that I've come here for, is to learn how to fully embody my own divinity.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And the last question that I was going to ask you, Bonnie, is what is your biggest source of inspiration right now?
Love.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Bonnie, I appreciate that. Perfect. Scott, I'm going to ask you to bring us on to the next little bit of some affirmations, my friend, before we let our listeners know how they can access Bonnie.
Yes. And also, Bonnie, if there's Any other just last empowering message you'd like to put out there for our listeners for their journey ahead? Something that they can take away from today's podcast.
Yeah. I'll reference back to what I was saying before. Learn what trust really feels like.
Mhm.
Look to the sun. If that works for you, or maybe there's something else. But whatever we can do, and in whatever way we can, to learn how to attune to that fully embodied trust, which inherent in that is our sovereignty, is our discernment. When we reside in trust, there is ease, and there is grace, and there is flow.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again for being here. And we're taping on this full moon day, even though it's not coming out. It's the full moon, Sagittarius. And there are a few Gemini affirmations. I trust the universe is always steering me towards my highest good. I trust that my highest good is also for the highest good of all. I am safe. I am protected. My voice is empowered because I feel safe and secure with who I am. I am mindful of my transmission. I am upgraded. My feelings are my highest source of information, and I stand in full awareness of that. All I experience is a reflection of me. I am trust. I am the sun.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. This is beautiful, bro. Just beautiful. And just like Bonnie, if you could, please let our listeners know how they can find you.
My website, bonniedivina.com. And my book also on
Yes,
Amazon.
awesome. That's what I was going to ask you, on Amazon. Thank you so much for being with us. This has just been a beautiful chat and dialogue, and we so appreciate you taking this time and sharing some space with us. And to everybody out there, please just remember that your voice is sacred. Speak like the universe is listening, because it always is. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we'll see y'all real soon. Stay empowered. Thank you now. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Empowerment Unleashed Now. Please subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and let us know how this helped you.
Join us right here every week for another episode.